Superman is often described as a symbol of hope, but that idea can feel a little abstract. He is faster than a speeding bullet, can shoot lasers from his eyes and freeze things just by breathing on them. But really, it's not his powers that are meant to inspire us, it's his morals. And the hero Steel is what it looks like when that aspirational hope actually works. John Henry Irons was not an alien, a billionaire, or a chosen figure. He was a skilled engineer who decided to act when he realized the harm his work had caused. Unlike many superheroes, Steel is not defined by tragedy or revenge. He's driven by a sense of responsibility. He's a character that was created as part of the sprawling Death and Return of Superman crossover of the 1990s. But of the 4 replacement Supermen, he was the one that best represented Superman's values. And when he appeared in Superman the Animated Series, where there was no Death of Superman storyline, the creative team still found a very similar way to use him. But before I get to that, it's important to talk about the comic book original. John Henry Irons first appeared in The Adventures of Superman number 500, published in 1993. This immediately followed the Death of Superman storyline and began the reign of the Supermen. After Superman's death, several figures attempted to replace him. Some copied his powers, some copied his image, and some claimed to actually be him. But Irons did none of these things. He never claimed to be Superman, and he never believed he could take his place. Instead, he tried to follow the example that Superman set. He didn't even call himself Superman. He initially took the name the Man of Steel. That distinction is what makes Steel important. He shows that Superman's greatest influence is not his feats of strength, but the standards he set for others. His real name was very deliberately chosen and may feel a little on the nose, but ultimately I think it's a strength. His surname Irons already makes clear a connection to metal, and John Henry comes from the American folklore hero of the same name. In the legend, John Henry is a railroad worker who competes against a steam-powered machine. He wins the contest through strength and determination, but dies from the effort. The story is a demonstration of the power of the human spirit, particularly the African-American freemen who worked on building America's railroads. So right off the bat, his name indicates humanity, effort, strength, progress, and sacrifice. This connection to the John Henry legend helps explain Steel's role in these stories. He represents human effort, moral choice, and responsibility in a world increasingly shaped by power and machinery. He had previously worked as a weapons designer for the Amertek Corporation. The weapons he designed were efficient, powerful, and easy to mass produce. In his mind, they would be used in wars to defend liberty and protect the innocent. Instead, Irons began to see where they were really going. Amertek was selling these weapons internationally, including to unstable regimes such as Kurak, treating them as standard defense contracts. At the same time, identical technology began appearing on the streets of Metropolis in the hands of organized gangs operating in neighborhoods like Suicide Slum. Whether through resale, theft, or plain indifference to where the weapons ended up, Amertek continued to profit. For Irons, the distinction between foreign battlefields and domestic crime collapsed. The outcomes were the same. His work was contributing to death and misery across the globe, and he could no longer pretend otherwise. Disgusted by the harm his work was causing, Irons resigned. And when he saw Superman battling Doomsday, he tried to help, but ended up getting caught in a flattened building. This makes it clear that a man can only do so much. To meet his ambitions, he'd have to get more creative. And it's very telling that he came into being when 3 other Supermen cropped up. The Eradicator was a Kryptonian artifact, Superboy was a clone, and Cyborg Superman was, well, a cyborg. All 4 of them are tech-based characters, but Steel is a man who uses machinery to fill the void left by Superman, and most importantly, he does not claim to be Superman, nor does he seek validation from the public or the media. His focus is limited and practical, stopping the spread of the weapons he helped create and protecting people where he can. Before becoming Steel, he had a brief but important encounter with Superman. At the time, Irons was working on a construction site, living an ordinary life outside of the world of superheroes. During the job, a fellow worker lost his footing and fell. Irons acted immediately, selflessly endangering himself to get the man to safety. In the progress, he fell from the structure, but Superman caught him. After being saved, Irons thanked Superman, and his response was simple and understated. He told Irons to make his life count and then left without further comment. That moment stayed with Irons. Superman did not give him a mission, a speech, or a challenge. He offered practical advice and delivered it without drama, and Irons took those words to heart, especially when he saw how his creations were being misused. Becoming the Man of Steel is Irons' response to that advice. It is his attempt to take responsibility for his actions and to use his skills in a way that helps others rather than harming them. When the real Superman returned, Irons faced a defining moment. During the battle against Cyborg Superman, Irons plays a critical role. His armor was destroyed in the process, leaving him vulnerable, but he continued to act, helping protect the city and supporting Superman and the other heroes. Even without his resources, he prioritizes stopping the threat by doing as much as he can. After the battle, Irons shortens his title from Man of Steel to simply Steel, essentially handing the title back to Superman and claiming a new identity of his own. Similarly, he removed the S-shield from his armor entirely, understanding that the symbol belongs to Superman, not him. This choice underscores Steel's defining principle. He did not seek to replace Superman, he seeks to uphold the standard Superman set. His role is not to wear the cape, but to act with integrity and responsibility in his absence. Where Superman's attention is cast on the whole world, Steel primarily defends his community, first trying to undo the damage he did by designing devastating weapons, and later by opening his steelworks factory to try to elevate his neighborhood out of poverty and better protect his community. There is an awful lot more to Steel, but this is supposed to be a video about how he was used in the DC animated universe, starting with Superman the Animated Series, but I think that all of that comic book backstory was necessary to demonstrate his character. Now, in Superman the Animated Series, Steel is introduced in a slightly different way than the comics, but the core of his character remains the same. John Henry Irons was a former engineer at Lexcorp, which certainly streamlines things, where he designed advanced weapons. He was the chief designer of the prototype police battlesuit that gave Officer Corey Mills power to rival Superman. He had warned Lex Luthor that the suit was not ready to move to the human testing phase, saying that he had concerns about the symbiotic nature of the suit and the impact that it'd have on the wearer's mind. When his concerns were ignored and seeing Officer Mills deteriorating, Irons resigned. He was the one that showed Superman the schematics that were crucial in helping him save Mills from the suit, and in passing, Superman mentions how nice it would be to have help, if they could somehow perfect the process. This ultimately is what leads to Irons creating the steel armor. It's far less technologically advanced than the earlier suit. There was no direct connection to the nervous system of the wearer, and no inputs that connected to the mind. Essentially, it's a suit of armor with jets on the boots and laser gauntlets. It may be simple, but it gets the job done. And it's important to note that at no time does he wear a cape or Superman's S-shield on the armor. This helps to set him apart from Superman and presents him as his own man. His first real test comes before the suit is even finished. While experimenting with a wrist-mounted weapon, he stops a getaway car fleeing police. Superman intervenes, but is weakened by Metallo, the villain with the kryptonite-powered heart. Irons and his niece Nat improvise and help protect Superman by taking him back to the steelworks. Here he dons the improved armor and helps delay Metallo long enough for Superman to recover. This episode really demonstrates the essential qualities of Steel: intelligence, resourcefulness, and a commitment to doing the right thing. Even without superpowers, he contributes. And choosing Metallo as Steel's first challenge was very smart. Metallo is a man who gave up his humanity to save his life, trapped inside of an unfeeling metal shell. I did a whole video about him quite some time ago, which I've linked to in the info button if you would like to hear more, but in summary, he is cruel and selfish. Both men, coincidentally named John, worked for Lex Luthor, but John Corbin was transformed into a nearly indestructible cyborg with a kryptonite-powered heart, while John Henry Irons got out before he was corrupted. Their confrontation is not only a battle of strength, but a clash of principles. Metallo represents what happens when technology is used irresponsibly, and when power overrides human judgment. Steel represents what happens when skill and intelligence are driven by conscience, and when choice and responsibility define actions. This contrast really underscores the central theme of Steel's character. Heroism is defined by how one chooses to act with what one has. In every sense, Steel and Metallo are two sides of a similar coin, one showing the dangers of power without restraint and the other showing the potential of responsibility in those same circumstances. Steel's confrontation with Metallo is one of the clearest examples of his capabilities and character. Metallo, powered by a kryptonite heart, is a direct threat to Superman and anyone nearby. Without superpowers, Steel steps into the fight using intelligence, engineering skill, careful planning, and a little bit of brute force. During the battle, Steel delays Metallo long enough for Superman to recover from kryptonite exposure. He uses his armor, weapons, and quick thinking to target Metallo's kryptonite core, neutralizing the threat entirely. This confrontation also establishes Steel as a credible ally to Superman. He earns recognition through results, showing that competence and courage are just as important as strength. And the closing moments of the episode perfectly demonstrate how he is an ally to Superman, not a replacement. Where Officer Mills had used the handshake with Superman as a way of demonstrating his strength, Irons enthusiastically shakes Superman's hand in friendship. It's a small moment, but it says a lot. Steel may not have been featured all that much in Estas, but he reappeared quite a few times in Justice League Unlimited. As a member of the expanded Justice League, Steel often worked as an engineer and problem solver. He repaired and maintained equipment, designed new technology and developed strategies alongside other heroes, like when Amazo returned to Earth seeking Lex Luthor. Sure, he mostly had a background role and wasn't the main star of any episodes, but that doesn't lessen his impact. While he can fight when necessary, his primary contributions are his intelligence, skill, and impeccable timing. For instance, when the clone of Supergirl Galatea stormed the Watchtower, it was Steel's artillery that saved Supergirl, despite the fact that Galatea had trounced him and destroyed his armour. This acted as a nice little nod to the comic book Steel and his battle against the cyborg Superman, as well as his earlier appearances defending Superman from Metallo, and I always appreciate little nods like that. At the end of the day, Steel demonstrates that heroism is defined by deeds, not power. He acts with responsibility and intelligence, applying his skills where they matter most for the betterment of those around him. From his first encounter with Superman and the prototype suit, John Henry Irons consistently makes decisions that are morally right, even if they come at a cost. He proves that a hero is measured by how they respond to challenges, not by the tools or abilities at their disposal. Ultimately, Steel is not Superman, and he never tries to be. What makes him a hero is how he chooses to act, with conscience, intelligence, and responsibility when no one else can. Not everyone can leap tall buildings in a single bound or build themselves a high-tech suit of armour, and they don't have to. He shows us that doing what we can, when we can, will make a difference. He's an example of what happens when inspiration results in action. Ordinary people using their skills to make a difference. That is the heart of Steel's story, and it's a reminder that true heroism isn't about superpowers, fame, or symbols. It's about the choices we make and having the courage to follow through. Okay, that's it for this essay. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell all your friends about me. You know how YouTube works. If you really liked the video and feel like tossing a buck or two my way, please consider using the thanks button, because every little helps. And if you have really enjoyed my work, you might want to pick up a copy of my book, Rogues Gallery. It features 22 essays on villains from Batman the Animated Series. There's a beautiful cover by Batman the Animated Series background artist John Calmette, a foreword by director Dan Reber, and a moving segment from the late Kevin Conroy sharing his thoughts on life, love, and loss. Plus, an exclusive essay on the Condiment King that will never be made into a video. Rogues Gallery is available worldwide on Amazon, both digitally and in softcover. Finally, channel memberships are just $1.99 a month and give you early access to my essays, custom emojis, and your name featured on my members end screen, which has been rolling for a little while now. Huge thanks to everyone who's already part of this. You've helped to make these videos possible. If you want to see your name up here too, join the channel now. And while I have your attention, please consider checking out my other channel, Serum Lake Comics, where I talk about mostly DC comic books. Next time. When I return on Monday, we'll be going back to Batman the Animated Series to talk about an underrated episode that shows us a story from multiple perspectives. Yes, it's the Rashomon-like tale of potential police corruption, POV. And next Friday, it's time for another Batman the Brave and the Bold video, this time looking at a well-meaning ally of Batman's voiced by the late Adam West, who was just too big and clumsy. We're going to talk about Proto. Hope to see you then.